Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Before the year ends, I wanted to share with you all a record of 2022 through the pages of my sketchbook. This might actually be the first time I've ever fully completed a sketchbook, let alone sharing a sketchbook tour video. For a long time, I always felt like there was a right way to keep a sketchbook, and I used to compare my output with other people's process, and a part of me always felt short when I flipped through my own pages and seeing my half-baked ideas. Because of this, I was never able to fully realize the potential of my own art process. Letting go of this mindset was the most significant step in being able to become more intimate with my own thoughts and my own work. One of the more significant changes to my process this year was letting go of the notion that a sketchbook has to be a certain type of brand or a certain type of product. I randomly picked up this Moleskine squared journal from my office supply closet, mostly thinking that I would use it for typical work-related note-taking. But I really like the lightweightness of this notebook. It doesn't have very many pages, and one thing I realized about myself is that oftentimes a thick sketchbook can actually feel quite paralyzing to me. Like there's an unspoken expectation of needing to fill in all the pages. I also really like the gridded pages. I use a lot of thumbnailing and writing when I sketch, and I've found that blank pages feel too open and too broad for me, and I almost always try to mark the boundaries within my pages to mitigate that feeling. So using a notebook with grid pages actually feels a lot more natural to me, so I can create those lines and those borders much easily. I think my only qualm about this notebook is that I wish the grid lines were just a tad bit lighter. As far as my vision for this year's sketchbook, I wanted to focus a lot more on composition studies. I started this sketchbook at the same time that I started working on my larger oil pastel pieces, which you may have previously seen on my channel. For these studies, I wanted to practice less on colors and techniques, but more on simplifying forms and documenting my first impressions. The sketch phase, to me, is the purest phase of a piece of art. The end product can be awe-inspiring, but the first impressions of the artist will always hold the deepest meaning, in my opinion. And for me, the less strokes, the less color, the less completeness, the better. Because of that, it was a conscious decision to keep this a minimal black and white sketchbook. I wanted to better understand lighting and colors and depth by practicing drawing with positive and negative spaces. One thing that has not changed this year, though, are my sources of inspiration. I still draw a lot of my ideas from everyday depictions of life and nature, but also through books, pieces of literature, and other forms of art. This year, I got into sewing, crocheting, and bookbinding. I also read more nonfiction books this year than I usually do. As far as art books go, I read a lot about David Hockney and his work. The larger pieces I finished this year were very much influenced by the thumbnail studies I did of Hockney's paintings. One of my favorite quotes that carried through my work this year was Hockney's description of painting landscapes. He said, "To do landscapes, you've got to know the place rather well. You've got to love it, actually. You've got to know where the sun will be." I definitely recommend using your sketchbook not just for art studies, but also as a diary of sorts. Looking back on these quotes and snippets of random thoughts really helped me discover my work and my interests beyond just making lines and shapes on paper. On top of this sketchbook, I also finished this small zine towards the latter part of the year. For a good while during the fall, I was not able to produce as much art. Most of that time was actually spent moving into a new home. I really felt like the seasonal transition this year had a deeper meaning to me as it coincided with a lot of new changes in my personal life. I knew that I had to put these feelings into paper somehow. Surprisingly enough, I also picked up watercolors again for this scene. It's been a couple of years since I last used my Gansai Tombi set, but needless to say, I rediscovered my love for them after working on this scene. I can definitely see myself incorporating more watercolors into my work next year. And that's about it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope that this inspires you to keep up with your own sketchbook for next year. Thank you so much for tuning in to my channel this year, and please, if you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. Thank you so much for watching.